everyone, welcome to digit.in, and today's review is going to be about the Honor 9N. The phone was launched today in the morning and I've been up for through 2 days now almost, just working very hard to get the review of this phone live. So the text is already there and the video review is now here. So now let's talk about what exactly do you get with the Honor 9N. The review unit that we got has the Kirin 659 chipset, which is equivalent to a Snapdragon 625. This has got 4GB of RAM and 64GB of onboard storage. There's also a micro SD card slot in case you want to add more storage to it. It's dual SIM enabled. It has the new 19:9 aspect ratio. The reason it's 19:9 is because it has a notch. If it didn't have a notch, it would have been 18:9. But anyhow, and it's got FHD plus resolution. So that's 2280 by 1080 roughly, which gives it about a 432 pixel per inch density. So that's pretty good. It's an IPS display, and unfortunately the display, the only thing you can tweak is the color temperature. You can't change the saturation levels at all. So if you're somebody who likes very saturated displays, or if you like, if you have a preference for saturation like I do, there is no option to change that, but you can change the color temperature and you actually get insane level of customization. There's a color wheel that you can use. So there's that. Excuse me. Then there is of course the fact that this phone's display is extremely bright. It's got a maximum brightness of about 631 lux, which translates to 184 nits roughly, and goes all the way down to 0.8 nits. So you can use it in bright daylight and you can use it in pitch dark while you're in bed to read stuff, and your eyes are going to be just fine. The phone will keep up. So the display on this is actually pretty good. It's 5.8 inches, full HD plus, good brightness, decent saturation levels. But coming from a photographer's perspective, I would say the colors on this are wonderful. They're accurate. Now let's talk about the performance. Given the fact that it's got a 625 type of chipset, which is the Kirin 659, it's got 4GB of RAM, it fits squarely in the budget segment. Against this, you've also got the Redmi Note 5 Pro from Xiaomi. So between this and that, the Xiaomi does outperform this phone by quite a bit. However, Huawei has been working hard at introducing something called GPU Turbo, which is a complete architecture level change in coding and how the GPU and the CPU are going to handle graphic intensive tasks. That update is not out for this phone yet. It will be though in some time, but in our benchmarks we found that the Honor 9N is a fairly graphically not that great. It's not very good for gaming. It will not be very good for heavy intense usage. That's at least what the benchmarks say, but in terms of my real life usage, that was not the case. Playing Asphalt Extreme, I found that the game is actually pretty smooth, although the textures are not that great. The rendering on particles is not that great, but I did not have any problem with gameplay. The same thing with PUBG. PUBG in fact played fairly well. The textures again look not that great, but playing, taking aim, shooting, whether it's using the scope or just not using the scope, everything worked fine. The only game that I had personally problems with was while playing Shadowgun Legends. Any of you, even if you play that game anymore, Legends had a lot of stutter. It had a lot of lag. While trying to take aim, the crosshair was moving slowly. The response time was not great. It was a bad gaming experience. But I think that could possibly have more to do with the game itself than the phone, since PUBG and Asphalt ran fine. Now, if you do take the gaming aspect out of this, in terms of daily usage, there's actually been no problem with the phone's performance. You can I ran about 15 to 20 tabs of Chrome, watched some videos on Amazon Prime, lots of messaging, a lot of social media stuff, managing Digit's Instagram page, and a lot of emails back and forth, a lot of typing on the phone itself. Yes, I did switch out to Google's own keyboard, but other than that, I did not notice any heating issues. There were no slowdowns, and periodically, yes, after playing a game, I would close background apps just to make sure that there was no issues. So that's about the performance of this phone. Yeah, before we talk about the camera, can you get me a Red Bull? Please yaar. Please yaar, de yaar. Red Bull manga de yaar. Porush,
Okay,
Red Bull.
I'll get one as soon as you are done with this. I'll get
Please, man, I won't be able to get done with this without a Red Bull.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So, next we'll talk about the camera. Now, the Honor 9N comes with a dual camera setup on the back and a single camera on the front. The dual camera on the back is a 13 megapixel primary wide angle lens with an aperture of f2.2, and the secondary camera is a 2 megapixel depth sensing unit with an aperture of f0.95 apparently. So how does this camera fare? It's got face detect autofocus and it's autofocusing in daylight. Let's talk about daytime first. Daytime photos are actually pretty good. They're easy to shoot. The focus is fast. It locks on pretty quickly. In fact, whether you're shooting subjects that are backlit or lit by normal light, you'll not have any problem. The colors are nice and rich. The contrast is good. Dynamic range is fairly acceptable. If you're into editing photos, then you will be able to get even more out of it. Unfortunately, there's no raw capture, so that's pretty bad. But when you come to low light, however, that's where you get when you hit the problem, which is that the f2.2 aperture is not big enough to be shooting in low light. And given that paired with the fact that the maximum ISO the Honor 9N goes up to, the camera goes up to, is ISO 2500. What that results in are images that are in certain lighting conditions grossly underexposed, because in auto mode the shutter speed will not go below 1/12 of a second. However, if you want to counter that, you can always switch over to the Pro mode that gives you control over the shutter speed. But then because this camera has no optical image stabilization, you might get camera shake in there. So all in all, low light photography, not that great. For selfies, however, the phone is pretty good. You can switch on the portrait mode, which will give you nice clean separation between your face and the background. And it does the job fairly well. It has the beautification mode that you would want, if you want to clean up your skin. Like I said, there's portrait mode, which you can disable. By the way, portrait mode is on by default. So that's something to note in case you start wondering why your images look so great or they look weird, whatever your preference may be. Now, let's see, is there anything else that's important about the camera? Oh yeah, nighttime photography with the front-facing camera. So low-light selfies are nothing great to talk about, to be very honest. In portrait mode, you get noise. If you use the on-screen flash, because this camera does not come with a front-facing flash, so if you use the on-screen flash, you get slightly better photos, but just like slightly. It's like 1920, 19-20 ka farak types. So not that great. When it comes to a phone that costs 14,000 rupees, honestly, you can't really expect much more from it. So if you talk about the camera performance, good for daytime shots, low light, not so much. Now we're going to talk about the design of the Honor 9N. Right, so this is a 5.8-inch phone. I honestly thought the back was polycarbonate, but turns out today Honor announced that this is actually glass. The front is obviously glass, 2.5D curved glass on both sides. The frame feels metallic, but it could be very, very good quality plastic. I'm honestly not able to tell. And I really don't want to take my knife to it and scrape the paint off like some YouTubers do to test the integrity of the build quality. What I can tell you is that it's extremely light. It tends to slip out of my hands. So what I've been doing is using this phone in a case. And personally, and this is my very, very personal opinion, if a manufacturer is not giving you wireless charging, there is no need for that phone to be made of glass. These things are delicate, they're slippery, and honestly, they may look good, but you're going to have to put it in a case anyway. So what's the point of those good looks if a case is going to hide it? So, this could have been metal. I would have been happier. But thankfully, Honor does bundle a nice case in the box that you can, use to protect it. There's actually no fingerprint sensor on the front, because it's moved to the back. And again, that's a personal choice, whether you like it at the back or you like it at the front. In some cases, people tend to prefer the fingerprint sensor on the back.
Swapnil, wake up.
Did you get me the Red Bull?
I'll get it for you, don't worry.
Oh my god, you didn't get me that.
I'll get it. Okay, chin down again.
Chin down. Having the chin down makes a person look fatter, right? Just like before double chins. Okay, anyway, so now I think we have to talk about the battery life. Battery life is the last thing we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about the battery life of the Honor 9N. This has a 3000 milliamp hour battery. There's no fast charging. The charger in the box is a 10-watt charger. And honestly, I was a little surprised that I barely managed to get a day's worth of battery life out of this phone. The reason it's surprising is because I've used a few other 3000 milliamp hour battery phones, and they've all easily lasted me well into the next day, which means that I could have charged them the next morning and there would be no problem. But with this one, that was not the case. Plugged it off the charger at about 8 in the morning, and by 10 p.m. I had to plug it back in, otherwise it would have died. While running PC Mark, I got about 4.5 hours on this, and then PC Mark typically stops at 20% battery life. And the minute the phone hit 20%, PC Mark crashed. So I was coincidentally there looking at the benchmark at the time, and 4.5 hours, and then PC Mark crashed. So in terms of its battery life, I'm hoping that Honor can introduce a software update which will improve the battery life, optimize the software a little bit more. But as of now, in this price segment, the Xiaomi Redmi Note 5 Pro offers far better battery life. Not just because of its bigger battery, but just in general, it's better. So now to answer the question of why should you buy the Honor 9N, if at all you should. So here are its strengths. It's a good looking device. It's a device that brings a very flagship level design language to a budget segment. It's got multiple color options that are very unique. So if you're somebody who is very particular about the way their phone looks, the Honor 9N is a good option for you. However, do know that because this is glass on the back, it will break if it falls. And a cracked phone does not look good at all anyway, so you might have to put it in a clear case. So that's one reason to buy it. Other than that, so the second reason to consider buying the Honor 9N would be because of its form factor. Since it's a 5.8-inch display, it is much easier to use with a single hand than the bigger Xiaomi Redmi Note 5 Pro. So that's another reason. If you're somebody who prefers to use their phones one-handed because you always have a cup of coffee in the other hand, or because of whatever other reason, you should not be using your phone while driving, just so you know. But other than that, in terms of its performance, in terms of how the camera operates, in terms of battery life, it genuinely doesn't offer anything stellar. It doesn't offer anything that stands out from whatever other companies are offering. In terms of software, yes, it does offer ride mode. It does offer integration with Paytm payments. It also offers the ability to sync multiple of these phones together to play music. But honestly, how many of you are going to actually use that? How many of you are going to buy 5 Honor 9Ns just to be able to put it in party mode, right? And Paytm integration also is great, but it's nothing like it's not like you probably don't have the app already. Ride mode, however, is something interesting, and people who often commute on two-wheelers could benefit from, but that's a very, very small segment of the people who would consider buying the Honor 5N. Overall, the Xiaomi Redmi Note 5 Pro does offer better value for money. It gives you better specs, it gives you better performance. However, the Honor 9N also gives you good looks, so you may want to consider the two. You may want to do a comparison on our website if you're really wondering about which to pick out of the two. So in case you want to do that, you can just log on to digit.in. In case you like this video, you can hit the like and subscribe button. In case you like this video, you could also leave us a comment. And in case you did not like this video, please be nice in your comments. Don't be too harsh. Yeah, that's a genuine request. I'm very tired. Where's my Red Bull? Where's my Red Bull?
It's coming, yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching.